Well, first I want to thank C Squared. Very much honored to be part of the esteemed speaking panel here. And I want to actually thank my marketing and fellow marketing folks at Unilever and our agency partners who have, I think, inspired me to share some terrific work today in what I'm calling an extraordinary time in what we have is a brave new world. It's funny, the 60s were known as the Mad Men era, the golden age of advertising. I actually would challenge that assertion because today I believe we're living in an extraordinary time, a time that I actually have come to believe is the new golden age of advertising, filled with so much promise and so many opportunities. So over the course of the next 20 minutes, I'm going to keep it fairly tight, is I'm going to share 2 points. One is, from a Unilever perspective, I'm going to set the context for how we look at the media and consumer landscape. And then with that set, how Unilever lives and thrives in that landscape. Okay. So it's funny, I used to do a context slide, and I would start out, and the headline would say, the difference a couple of years makes. Because frankly, we're living in a time where 2, 3, 4 years, we were seeing such rapid change, such unbelievable innovation. But the truth is, if you look at where we stand today, it's not even about a couple of years anymore. Thus, I've changed the title to, in 2011 so far, what has happened to change the context for how we view the world? So I'm not sure people recognize this young girl, but she's actually a living proof of the dynamic nature and the enormous change that we're living through. Her name is Rebecca Black, and she is a young girl in Southern California who received for her 12th or 13th birthday a present from her parents. What was that present? It was to make a music video for her and her friends. They scripted a song, they brought some cameras, and they were going to make a music video for her and her friends. And I'll share that with you in a minute. But I think what Rebecca Black shows earlier this year is the true power of self-publishing. So YouTube has been around now for about 5 or 6 years, but I think she's like living proof of the dynamic nature and the power of self-publishing. Because Rebecca Black posted her music video on YouTube, and it got a couple hundred views, 1,000 views, and quickly became one of the top 10 YouTube videos of all time. Now, why, you ask? Well, that's the second part of the story, and that is the power of the social graph. Because while she had 100 or maybe 1,000 YouTube views, I actually caught her around 3 million. And how I caught her was I was following on Twitter, and someone said, the worst music video ever made, ... And with a headline like that, how can you not click through to see? Well, quickly 3 million became 10 million, became 25 million, and the rest is history. She became an overnight sensation, parodied actually around the world with people joking about her song. All right, so let me just show you a quick clip, I think, which talks about, again, the power of self-publishing and the power of the social graph.
Downstairs, gotta have my bowl, gotta have cereal, seeing everything, the time is going, ticking on and on, everybody's rushing, gotta get down to the bus stop, gotta catch my bus, I see my friends, kicking in the front seat, sitting in the back seat, gotta make my mind up, which seat can I take? It's Friday, Friday, gotta get down on Friday, everybody's looking forward to the weekend. So chilling in the front side, in the backseat, driving, cruising.
Friday, in honor of today. What's extraordinary is you look at that song, and she's, again, become a huge success, and she's lasted well beyond 15 minutes. I would like to say only in America, right? But the truth is, she's become a global phenomenon. Again, self-publishing, social graph. 2011, earlier this year, the Arab Spring. I mean, the signs, what we all saw and lived through was extraordinary. In 17 days, in what was, I would consider, a fairly non-violent revolution, they took down a leader of 30 years in 17 days. Now, certainly Twitter and Facebook and Google and the rest of the folks who had helped facilitate people, it wasn't like these things came out of nowhere. There was 30 years of challenges for people in that country, whether it be employment or food or whatever it was. But the power and ability for people to connect with one another through the social graph, again, is extraordinary. Groupon, another amazing story. 2010, Groupon was in one country. One country. Today, they are in over 45 countries, thousands of employees, hundreds of millions of people shopping through social commerce. Again, the rate of change. We thought Twitter and Facebook had a kind of a fast rise. Groupon is, I think, taken a whole nother level. And it's not just Groupon, right? It's all the others. It's Amazon Daily Deals. It's Facebook. It's Google Offers. This whole social commerce really has come out of nowhere. Again, in the matter of 2011, I think we've seen enormous growth. This next one's actually very exciting, and it's what I'm calling, or people call, social search. Because if you think about what we do with Google or Bing or other search engines, is we go looking for answers, solutions. And oftentimes we're looking for information on a hotel or a restaurant or an automobile, and we search and we see all these various comments. And what's amazing is they're comments from people we don't know. They're telling us about a hotel they stayed that we're looking to stay at. And we have no idea who they are, what their socioeconomic status is, yet we're trusting these opinions, and they make our decisions. What's amazing about social search and what Bing has done with Facebook and what Google's doing with Google+ is the ability to harness the power of one individual social graph to get answers and feedback. So this is a simple example I did, pulling from my social graph, where I searched something for easy recipes. And certainly some of the organic or sponsored links come up. But as you go down, you begin to see pictures of people I know who are talking about information on recipes. So before I would go and just search for something on recipes, and people I wouldn't know with no faces, no idea who they are giving tips on recipes. Now I'm getting insight from people in my social graph, multiple people in my social graph, on information on recipes. Think about the power of word of mouth in search and the potential of that. For us as marketers and brand people, it's very important to understand our footprint and how people perceive and talk about us. And then last but not least is Angry Birds. Angry Birds, I believe, is truly tipped in 2011. 400 million downloads, a movie deal, huge merchandise. And I think Angry Birds is an illustration of what's happened in the last probably 10 to 12 months, which is the gamification of the globe. And how games have moved well beyond just young males, but to moms and Gen Xers and a host of others besides just young people. So that's 2011 so far. And so what's interesting is we're living in an infinitely more complex, networked, technologically sophisticated time. We are. That's just where we're living today. But the truth of the matter is, despite all that, despite all these platforms, despite all this change, there's nothing that replaces the power of a great idea rooted in a compelling and authentic consumer insight. And that's what I'm here to share with you today. Because all this great stuff with platforms and iPhones and Androids, that's great, but we can't, as marketers, let that get in the way or hide the fact that if we don't have good ideas or are lazy about our insights. Because people and consumers will see right through that. The beauty of this platform and all the opportunities that this chart provides is that if you have a great idea rooted in a great consumer insight, the opportunities to amplify that are limitless. And that's why it's so exciting to be doing what we're doing today. Because you have a great idea, and there's no stopping where that idea could go. Okay. So the first idea and platform I want to share is a Unilever brand, Pepsodent, and Signal in some countries. But it's where we put the social mission at the heart of our brand and our campaign. And it's a story about a really interesting insight about young children who actually only brush their teeth in the morning. Like study after study around the globe showed us that young kids brush their teeth in the morning, but they just don't brush it at night. The other interesting insight we had in this space was this really interesting dynamic between fathers and their children, particularly in the nighttime ritual. And that there was something missing in the connection of a father who comes home from a long day of work and how they're connecting with their children at night. So with those two insights in hand, we set out in what we consider a category developing opportunity, tapping into some of these insights. Thus, Pablo and Oliver were born, a cross-platform program that, while anchored in television, lives on the net and through mobile and through a host of other platforms and networks. Take a quick look at the clip.
Pepsodent presenta
Pablo,
y Oliver.
¿no te cepillas los dientes?
No lo necesito.
A ver, están blancos, sí. ¿Y el aliento? Porque por más que los dientes estén blancos, el aliento está... y es tremendo. ¿Sabes que una forma de probarlo es cantando? La donna móvil. Uy, uy, uy. Bueno, hasta mañana. Uf.
Usa Pepsodent Complete 8. Protección completa para tu familia. Reconocida por la Federación Dental Internacional.
Qu'est-ce que vous faites avec papa quand vous brossez les dents le soir?
Rien.
So very light actually on our branding, but we really spoke to just a couple of really powerful and important insights. And we've seen huge growth. Actually, this is now in 40+ countries. Again, you land on a great idea rooted in a compelling consumer insight, and there's no stopping. It's provided a whole new message and ideas for parents, particularly fathers, to connect with their children to make the evening brushing ritual something a little special. The second one also kind of driven by a consumer insight, and that's not to always be this long kind of like sustained platform that lives forever. This is actually a terrific example for Rexona, our Rexona brand degree in the United States, where we saw an opportunity in Eastern Europe. In Eastern Europe, a number of women they believed actually they didn't need to use deodorant consistently. And it's obviously a very taboo and sensitive subject. So what Rexona did was we tapped into that. And not on some long, sustained campaign with TV and print ads, but in a short spurt and a really innovative idea to take advantage of that insight and opportunity. Take a look.
Ooh, watching me, oh, hanging by a string this time.
Nu crede că români, nu am grijă de el. Vreau ca eu să fiu persoana aceea curajoasă care îndrăznește să se pună... Am promis că voi face acest experiment. Voi trăi o săptămână fără deodorant.
Oprește
Rexona, as a brand, sales share skyrocketed. This story captured the imagination of the entire country for a week. Notable is that she lasted about 3.5 days. She just couldn't go much longer than 3.5 days without deodorant. But again, tapping into a really powerful insight with a platform that didn't have to last for many years. And I think, again, that's the importance. It's the ability to take an idea, leverage across all these different platforms to bring it to life. The next example, I think, is rooted in one of our brands, Omo, and it kind of like celebrates the idea that dirt is good. In a time where kids are spending too much time in front of televisions and video games, and obesity is a global epidemic, Omo celebrates the idea of going out and having your kids get dirty, embracing being a child, playing on the playground, playing ball, cooking with mom in the kitchen. Just go ahead and get dirty. Enjoy the youth. Because Omo will be there to make sure to clean up the mess. And the camiseta viejita is the traveling t-shirt. It's a story of a t-shirt that traveled around Brazil. And it came to symbolize this idea of encouraging people to get dirty. And it was a cross-platform program anchored in television, on Facebook, Twitter, where moms actually vied to have an opportunity to get that t-shirt and have a chance to a host of things, but really have their child kind of go ahead and get dirty, sponsored by Omo. A terrific example, a quick clip.
A camiseta viajante Omo continua rodando todo o Brasil para desafiar crianças e adultos. E aqui em São Paulo está a Tânia, nossa segunda ganhadora. O filho dela, Vinícius, preparou uma pizza deliciosa e ela teve que deixar a camiseta limpinha para o próximo ganhador. Como é fácil? Fácil, porque Omo Multiação é imbatível na remoção de manchas. E a Tânia levou R$100 mil para ajudar a garantir o futuro do Vinícius. Quem sabe, a camiseta viajante não viaja até você. Participe, coloque Omo à prova.
The traveling t-shirt. I think, again, another great example of cross-platform, powerful message that we've been able to amplify and drive through a host of kind of unlimited channels. The next example is the show, inspired by the show Mad Men. Are people familiar with the show Mad Men? Again, I refer to it. It signals the rise of the golden age of advertising. So what Unilever did was we found 7 brands that were all living during the 60s. And we worked with, an agency to provide a whole contextual look at the 60s through the eyes of our brands at that time. Because, again, we had brands with really clear ideas and platforms. It was almost like what's old is new again, or what's new is old again. So we created a fictitious agency, and every week during the Mad Men run, a different ad was featured in commercial time. And they were actually talking about the idea of that brand from a 60s perspective and how to bring that idea to life. And what we did was we partnered that kind of ad with a current day ad. I'll show you in a second. But what's interesting is the show Mad Men does not have huge ratings. It's one of those critical favorites. People love the show. It has a couple million viewers, but the influence is much broader to the public than just the people who watch the show. So knowing that, we actually had set up a whole kind of like 360, again, to take advantage of what we thought was a powerful platform, an opportunity to take advantage of mobile and the web and all these other opportunities from a social graph perspective. So the first I'm going to show you, I'll show you is, actually the ad speaks for itself.
Creatively, Y&R is not capable of living in this neighborhood.
This is the real show.
You know why? Because you don't work there.
So the client wants us to show why a woman would choose Dove over soap.
Here's your coffee, Mr. Winter.
Thanks, Nancy. All we need to do is tap into a woman's innermost thoughts and feelings.
Well, I happen to be an expert on women. Maybe not so much their thoughts or feelings.
Come on, this should be easy. What do women like?
My mom likes scotch.
That doesn't help.
Look, I know this may not be my place. To you guys, these all may look the same, but there's a difference. When I use soap, my skin feels dry. When I bathe with Dove, my skin feels soft and smooth and clean, because that's what Dove does better than soap. And trust me, women know the difference.
Well, we could do exactly that.
I think we just earned a round of golf.
Can your body wash nourish this deeply? The moisturizer in other body washes sits on top of skin. Only Dove has Nutrient Moisture, which can nourish deep down. Dove Body Wash with Nutrient Moisture. Superior.
So every week, we showed our current brands and their positions today, and almost like where those positions and platforms came from in the 60s, in that kind of feel. Now, it had very much a look and feel like you were watching the show, which was part of our intent, this contextual platform. Well, we didn't have to actually work very hard to spur this social community and the social graph to spread the word about what we had done, because the comments came fast and furious across a number of different platforms. And, you know, there were those on the positive who called it brilliant and clever, and I didn't even realize what I was watching. I thought it was part of the show. I thought it was a different agency on the program. And there were others who were like, they were pissed because you tricked me into stopping my DVR fast forward button to watch an ad for Dove. But another interesting thing happened, and that is, if you notice, Dove as a brand stands for the Campaign for Real Beauty, empowering women of all kind of types. And it's an unbelievable platform and message we've had over the last probably 6 or 7 years. But some women actually saw that ad and took exception. They felt like the way the men treated that secretary in the ad was so anti-Dove. How could they dare take her idea and go play golf and take credit for it? Again, it provided a lot of food for fodder. So what happened was that story in particular took off across the press. People started writing about this one woman's blog and how she was taking Dove to task for that ad. Now what's interesting is people oftentimes ask, well, how do you know when you're a brand, when to step in the social graph? How do you know when you need to correct the story? And this is an example where she came out with a blog blasting us. A couple other people got on board and blasted right along with us. But we actually decided to stay patient because we felt like her claim was frankly absurd and that we felt the community would correct the problem. And oh, did they correct the problem. She became like a parody unto herself, the woman who started this whole claim. And the comments came fast and furious as articles started covering the story. Perez Hilton, one of the most popular sites, came out with a whole thing called, "Is this Dove commercial controversial? What do you think?" And now, remember, we're talking about a commercial on a TV show. So when you see that headline on a homepage, well, you're going to watch the commercial to see. And obviously, consumers clearly voted. They thought it was clever marketing versus like, blatant sexism. But in the end, we were talking about a commercial. And what's interesting is, this is actually my favorite tweet. This tweet actually came after the premiere episode of Mad Men. It says, from Mark Franks, "Damn, I iTunes the latest episode of Mad Men and I missed the Dove commercial." Right? There was so much chatter on Twitter about our commercial. The show, forget the show, it was the commercial everyone was talking about. I think an extraordinary, if you think about the power and richness of this content, of this show, and everyone's talking about a Dove commercial. Again, great idea, rooted in the consumer insight, and then amplifying and exploding across the social graph. All right. The last example I'm going to share is from Axe. I think this example, again, talks about both a consumer and media insight. So young men in Asia, and frankly probably across the globe, they use their mobile phones as alarm clocks in numbers of like 80+%. So I'm not sure I'd want to be in the alarm clock business today as young people get older. So 80+%. So we found that a really interesting stat. So what did we do? Well, we combined, in a way only Axe could do, the power of what I would call sight, sound, and motion, which is what the big screen gives us, like the big television screen, with the interactivity of the mobile phone. Thus, the Axe Wake Up service was born.
Axe Wake Up Service, a uniquely attractive mobile content application that means young Axe guys are woken up by beautiful women every morning. Register online, scroll through the angel's profiles, just set the time and, sleep well. And if you were naughty and ignored your wake-up call... Axe Wake Up Service.
Again, I think a powerful example of leveraging insight about the consumer with an unbelievable platform and just exploding it in the mobile space. So that concludes my presentation, hopefully right on time in 20 minutes. I appreciate your attention, and thank you very much.